I'd been sculpting for about 10 years before I was fortunate enough to be invited to go and shoot grouse in Scotland. And the anticipation and excitement just built up in me about this magnificent wild bird that could just about outfly a peregrine falcon. And finally the first day came, and I stood out there uncomfortable in my tweeds, my +4s, and all the paraphernalia that one wears. And the wind lashed into my face, as rain, wet. The wind was so strong it lifted pieces of heather out and threw them at me, and I could not hit a bird. These grouse, magnificent, noble, surfed the wind, and as they turned and rocked like this, their eyes would stay parallel with me, looking at me as to ask, what on earth is this African playing at? Anyway, that was my first day. What really impressed me was the evening that followed and the stories that came out about the grouse. And I looked at all of these men, very comfortable with themselves, comfortable now that they were warm, comfortable that they had a couple of good drinks. And as this meal of delicious grouse was served and the stories got louder and more exaggerated, and I looked at the table, which apart from some silver candlesticks had nothing much to excel and accelerate the conversation, I decided then that I would make a pack or a few packs of grouse flying over the table from one end to the other. And that's what I set about doing. I set about studying these grouse, studying them in flight, and then sculpting them in solid sterling silver. And the day that I put the first set of grouse from one end of a table to another, in Yorkshire it was then, the fruits of my hard work and this whole exciting expedition of mine came to bear. And in this way, I watched the guns around the table become even more exciting, recognizing the flight of the individual birds and talking about them to the chap sitting next to them, or lording over the whole of the conversation. Do you see that grouse over there? The pair. Well, that really excited me because it meant that I'd been accepted by men who studied these wild birds, who'd pursued these wild birds, and who respected these wild birds. Observation is the big thing when you're sculpting like I do in minute detail. And you can be totally preoccupied with these grouse. But I must say there are lots of other creatures out there. They're the black grouse. They're the hares that are running across the heather. And there's that beautiful heather, that lovely purple heather, the smell of freedom and wilderness in the British Isles. And as that evening wears on and the conversation gets louder and the story's a little wider, I move on to one of my creations, which is the fine silver altar to the fruit of the grape. And this coaster for a Jeroboam is made of solid silver and depicts flying grouse at all angles, lying around in a circle over rocks and heather, a huge piece that weighs 4.5 kilograms of silver with a deep mahogany base upon which the bottle sits. So that's the one of a pair, 2 packs of grouse, 8 on the one coaster, 9 on the other, swirling in the mists of the moor, and all of them guaranteed to get home safely.